يا الله إني ناديتك وسعيت، إني استهديتك فهديت، بالقرآن أنرت طريقي. يا الله إني ناديتك وسعيت، إني استهديتك فهديت، بالقرآن أنرت طريقي.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Ahlan wa sahlan. Welcome to another episode of the Shahada podcast with me, your host, Ahmed Hanif from our studio in Istanbul. Alhamdulillah, we have another guest with us today. But before we start, I would like to remind you to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on the bell notification so you can be notified when we do release new episodes. So let's get started. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ustaz Khalil Charles. So I take you've come straight from work to join us and give us insight on your journey to Islam. Can you just give us a start by giving us an introduction on yourself, a small bio?
I am Khalil Charles. I embraced Islam about 30 years ago. I come from the Caribbean in a small island called St. Lucia, and I have been living in different parts of the world, especially Sudan, as well as here in Turkey. The main job that I've been doing for most of my life is journalism. I started off as a cub journalism. I was trained by the BBC and has done a number of documentaries for the BBC and other organizations.
Subhanallah. Jazakallah for that intro. So you were a journalist before accepting Islam, and you said that was over 30 years ago.
That's correct. Yeah. When I started off, people were not really being trained in journalism. It was very much, you were only white faces really on the television at that stage. And I was fortunate to get trained by the BBC as a reporter on local radio. And after that, I moved on into television and then into documentary filmmaking. And so journalism really was a passion that I had very, very early on. I remember sitting at home and pretending to be a reporter. I must have been about 6 or 7 years old. So it's always been something I wanted to do. And for a long time, I could only just really, dream about it until, alhamdulillah, my dream came true, and I was taken by BBC and worked for the BBC for a number of years, and journalism in different parts of the world.
I take it at that time there were not many or maybe none Muslim sort of news platforms out there.
There were very, very, very few. I mean, at that time, of course, I wasn't a Muslim at that stage, but even after becoming a Muslim, there were very few places or very few people, Muslims, who were in the media as such. That's changed now. I think it's a lot better than it used to be. But the main thing is that people have learned that with the skills of the media and skills of journalism, I think people have really, excelled. A lot of Muslim reporters, a lot of people, alhamdulillah, really, really are.
Yeah, and the importance of media in terms of countering false narratives and dispelling some of the misinformation about Islam as well, I guess.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of us, we're also part of that. If we're Muslims, we're still getting part of the narrative. We're still part of those things that don't really make any sense. But we peddle those things, even as journalists. That professional journalists, we do put things out that we don't really believe in. I can take back to when I was reporting on local radio, and we used to really try and go for the story. But if we couldn't, get all the things we needed to get, then we would embellish the story.
By separating.
Yeah, I'm not saying necessarily we'll lie about it, but certainly we'd tell the story to its strength. That was my training. Tell the story to its strength. What is the strength?
So would you say that after you became Muslim, that you were more morally focused, and there were certain aspects of the media work that you had to sort of think twice about, or
You're absolutely right. It did change when I became a Muslim. I started to think about what I shouldn't be doing and what I shouldn't be saying. And so it was, not the same kind of taking the risk of achieving these things as you would if you were a new reporter without the experience. So you try and make yourself a name. And part of making yourself a name is embellishing the truth. I mean, you can see people like Boris Johnson, who, of course, is famous for the kind of mistruths that he's told during the time that he was a journalist. And so, there is always the problem of misspeaking if you're in front of a camera, etc. We were just talking about that reporter who went in and talked about 40 beheaded babies. I mean, things that she didn't see, didn't know, but was told. And so reporting can be skewed. It can be put out just to get to match an agenda that people tried to put out. So it's always quite dangerous.
Alhamdulillah, as Muslims, we understand that anything that we say, or repercussions of what we say, we're going to be held accountable for that. So I guess that's always something that will can judge our actions by, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, if you're trying to, and there's a lot of problem now, if you're trying to get clicks and likes, and you're trying to be famous by doing, there's things that you might say that you might embellish and this kind of thing, and that's all hisab, that's all on your account in Yawm al-Qiyamah. So that's very, very important, that what you say you truthfully, to be correct. I've been writing for the last kind of 15 years, and I have to say that on a couple of occasions, people have pointed out that you made a mistake here. And, that hasn't been very often, but it always kind of gets you, and you think, oh no, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have said that. That was the wrong information. So that, for a person who has a conscience, it's difficult to put out things that to be wrong. And it's just equally as difficult when you find out that you made a mistake, because you don't want to make mistakes. You're very, very careful about what you write, very, very careful about what you say, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the angels on both sides are marking things down.
So you're from London.
I am.
Stronghold of the dawah in the West, alhamdulillah.
Well, I mean, when we was coming through, there was always a desire to go and make hijrah, out of. So I was in Luton for a while, and in Luton it was a lot of young people who were very, very jealous. Not actually jealous, no, zealots. No one's zealous. That you should cut it out. There were the people who were really, really keen on practicing their deen, and it was a time when people were very, very, if you like, very kind of wanting to prove their points. And there was sheikhs who were not the best of sheikhs, but they were coming and teaching people all kinds of things. And, it was a difficult point in time, and people were disagreeing and arguing with each other over various things, And so it was a difficult time because you didn't really know what direction to follow. You didn't know who to follow, how to follow it. And there was always this warning that, you should be doing bid'ah, you shouldn't be doing things that are... So, on one hand, it's a good thing. It's a good thing that you're careful of that. But on the other hand, it was very, very difficult to know what was true and what wasn't. And I think I remember that at that time, or only later, I remembered what Imam Malik said and that was if you study the Sharia, you study fiqh, okay, but you don't study, tasawwuf. You don't study something to learn about the heart and the conditions of people's then you could be corrupted. You could be corrupted. And in some respects, and during that time, there was a kind of corruption in the way that we saw things. We wanted to just criticize everything that happened, especially we thought it was bid'ah and it was not, it was permissible, and that kind of thing. And so, Malik goes on to say that someone who learns tasawwuf but doesn't learn fiqh and doesn't learn, the Sharia, then they could very much come out of the deen, say things that are totally untrue. So that the combination of the two, the combination of fiqh, the combination of tasawwuf, of spirituality, those two items for me, I understood those two items is where the truth, I think, lies.
Okay, so let's go back a bit, pre-Islam. What did you know about Islam before accepting?
Well, I mean, like everybody else, I think I saw the political side of Islam to be very, very, encouraging. I mean, Malcolm X, like everybody else, I read Malcolm's biography, and Malcolm was very strong to me, and I felt that was an important message that he was putting on. So although I didn't embrace Islam at that time, I certainly felt about what he was saying to be a very strong message. And later on, when we started talking about religion and wanted to know whether there is a God, I always believed there was a God. But I was brought up as a Catholic inside the church, and going to church on the Sundays, learning about catechism, as it was called, and some of the things that I was learning, I was not really impressed by, but nevertheless, I wanted to understand what was expected of me as a person. That because I always believed that God made me, God, guides my life, and so I wanted to know what that was all about, and so slowly and surely, I started to make questions, and I started to ask things about it. And I looked at all the kind of religions. I looked at all of them, Hinduism, Christianity, and all the rest of it. And I came to the conclusion that the only one that really was universal, and the only one that made sense, and that's important. I didn't really understand Christianity. I didn't understand how a God was in three and all that kind of stuff. So the only thing that really made sense is Islam. And of course, I didn't embrace Islam at a time when the negativity about Islam was there. I never really
Pre-2001 was
it was. So all this kind of stuff that the terrorists and all this kind of stuff that they call the Muslims sometimes, that wasn't there. It was just generally a struggle, a political struggle that was enhanced by a religious understanding, and that was Islam.
Would you say that part of your black identity was a reason for, you mentioned Malcolm X, would you say that part of your black identity was a reason for exploring those kind of avenues?
Absolutely. I mean, because at the end of the day, we as African Caribbean people in London, we didn't like being told to I guess we don't much like it even now, but we didn't like being told what to do. We didn't mind having that feeling that we're back into some kind of enforced slavery in terms. But when I learnt about Islam, I learnt and understood that came from God. It didn't come from a man-made source. And when I was overtaken by that, I decided, no, I have to, because I recognize the truth. There's no way I can ignore it anymore. And I needed guidance. I needed clarity. I needed to be clear about what my life was about. And when Islam came, it came just at the right time, when I really needed to change my life and put it on the right footing.
Your first interaction with Muslims, do you still remember that?
Not really, apart from the fact that I was in Gambia when I went to visit some friends, and it was Gambia is a very friendly and a very alhamdulillah, very Islamic type environment in the Gambia. There are other places not so Islamic, but certainly I remember going to masjid early in the morning and being absolutely astounded by the fact there was hundreds of people inside this dark this dark area, and I just thought to myself, well, there's every morning people get up every single morning and go to this mosque and pray, and every single. I mean, I was used to sleeping on until 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, but to do that every single day, I thought that was quite a challenge. And actually, I thought, well, that's really a bit of strong discipline, and I think that's what I really liked about Islam. It was discipline. It was doing things that are right at the right time, in the right way, the right manner. So therefore, I really felt that this I could really do this. Could really do.
And you needed some discipline in your life as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was from a middle class kind of family, in the sense that I lived in Edgware, which is on the northern line, and I was from a reasonable affluent kind of place. My mother and father had their own home, and we lived in a nice area, and so I wasn't involved in the kind of like rough house, bad boy kind of experience. But having said that, I used to love basketball, and my way of getting outside the house was to play basketball. And when I was playing basketball, it kind of changes your character. In a sense, it makes you very kind of in your face, and you think you're a bad man because you're really a good player and this kind of stuff. So it changes your character. It makes you feel very, very arrogant about how good you are, and how well you do when you play and this kind of stuff. So it actually changes my frame to make me act, if you like, very, very aggressive. Very, very aggressive. And there was no softness about being born in London and playing basketball in the way that I did.
Okay, I can vouch for that. I mean, London is being a London guy myself. It's it's a rough place to grow up in, especially for some of the underprivileged kind of communities that are there as well. All right, so you accepted Islam in 1992, from what I remember. What was the reaction of your family? Did you tell them straight away? Were there any sort of reservations in approaching them, or were you just open?
I came to as a Muslim, believing that I could change every single person that I talked to. As soon as I got the truth, yeah, I wanted to tell everybody that I talked to. And I thought it would be quite easy. They'll understand what I'm saying to them, and they will become Muslim as well. So I was very, very keen to not listen basically to anybody else, and basically try to put the dawah over as strongly as I could. It worked in some parts, some tests, and in others it didn't. And it didn't work with my parents. They're still not Muslims yet. And my brothers are still not, in Islam yet. But I think one was the important thing was that at the very beginning, I was just so proud, and so, not proud in a bad way, but so pleased to be a Muslim. And so it's just something that really, really made me feel, for a long time, you're very, very, very proud about.
How was that feeling of taking the shahada for the first time?
Well, it was very emotional.
I can imagine.
Very emotional. I had 2 kids at the time, and when I decided, I took them with me to the mosque, and I always remember they said to me, Dad, we've never seen you look so happy. We've never seen you, smile so much, And it was really a cheerful and really, an amazing time to become Muslim. And I felt, I'd been chosen. I really felt, of all the religions I could have chosen, of all the people who could become Muslim, I didn't see myself as that. But I really felt very special for having become a Muslim. I really felt special.
Alhamdulillah. Were there any Muslims around you after taking the shahada? Because I know that there is sometimes this great reaction from Muslim community when someone accepts Islam, and then a lot of the time there's some shortcomings in terms of the after support that a lot of revert Muslims need. Did you experience any of that?
Yeah, I mean, there weren't that many people who had become Muslim, and even those who were Muslim didn't know much about it. And so therefore, you became, if you like, your own scholar, you became your own, sheikh, because there was really nobody else to teach you. And that's when we started to think about getting out of the UK and going somewhere to learn Arabic, to learn about the deen. Because, if you continued the way as we did, it was very, very likely that you would be tempted and you'd fall off the deen. And I just wanted to find out as much as I could and as quickly as I could. And so I decided very, very early on, within a year or so, I decided I wanted to make the hijrah and leave the UK.
Within the first year or so, you said?
Absolutely.
Okay.
To go out and learn. I wanted to study. I wanted to learn Arabic. I wanted to be the best Muslim I could possibly be. And so, yeah, quite early on, I think within 2 years or so, I was out and moved to Sudan.
Okay, perfect. So, yeah, your journey from after accepting Islam up until today, you mentioned Sudan, and of course, if there's any other places that you've been or any other major events, please tell us about that.
Well, I left the UK having tried to give dawah and having been involved with the community there, and it was difficult because we simply didn't have enough knowledge about what was going on, and people used to come on and tell us, oh, it's this, it's that, it's this and that. And I remember looking at a book about the 4 mazahib, and I was astounded by it. Why was I astounded? Because at that time, people were arguing and shouting at each other about what should be the correct way to hold your hands when you pray, where should you stick your feet when you pray, etc. This kind of thing. And when I found a book which talked about the 4 mazahib, the 4 ways of practicing the deen, it became very clear that all these arguments that people were having about, they no longer needed to be there, because the Malikis did it one way, the Hanafis did it that one way, the Shafis did it another, and that was fine, and everything was acceptable. So the thing that I really enjoyed is I needed to go away and just learn. And it happens that I learned with a sheikh from the Maliki school.
In Sudan?
In Sudan, yeah. There are a lot of Malikis in Sudan. There are very few Shafis, but mostly Malikis. And my sheikh happened to be a Shafi. Okay, so we sat every single day. We sat learning the books of fiqh, learning the books of the deen. And after about 6 years of learning one book, you kind of felt you knew a little bit about the deen. And so that was the exciting point for me, because although I was in Sudan, earning as a teacher and also then going on to learn as a journalist, the most exciting thing that I had was that every single day I was sitting with the scholars in a place called Omdurman in Sudan, sitting with the scholars and learning and learning and learning. And that really was fascinating and a fantastic time that I had during that time. It really was something.
Mashallah, so you took the route of seeking knowledge.
Absolutely. And I mean, even today, I sit down and I'm trying to learn. You know, I mean, I'm trying to remember things and try to you know, brush up my knowledge about that. And that's the path. The path of spiritual knowledge is really so enjoyable.
How long were you in Sudan?
I was 14 to 15 years in Sudan, and like I said, every single day we were with the sheikh under the tutelage of the sheikh, and it was just a really fascinating time.
You're based here now in Turkey. You're living here.
I do, yes. I'm here in Turkey, Istanbul. I carried on my journalistic experience and like being a journalist, and so I work for the national television station here in Turkey, and I've continued my writing of my articles and stuff on Sudan and on the situation in different parts of the world. So it's been you know, great. I mean, I must admit, from the time that I left London and I went there back for a very short period, and I started working there for Islam Channel back in London. But I was there for a short time, I think about 2-3 years, and then decided to come here. So I've spent most of my time as a Muslim, I've spent outside of my hometown, on my home country, outside of Britain, outside of the UK.
And it's not an option. You're not looking to go back anytime soon yet?
I don't know. I mean, you know, I think there are some great people there that I met, and you know, some of whom you know are students of mine and stuff like that. You know, so they're great people. But I don't necessarily think that that's the place for me. You know, having been outside of the UK for a while, I certainly find just I can hear the azan. You know, that's one of the most pleasurable things you can have in life, is being able to wake up to the azan and to hear the azan every single day.
Yeah. I forgot to ask you, were there any individuals that played a part in you? Because you did mention that you had these questions, so a lot of it, I mean, you had that fitra there, that natural inclination. Were there any individuals that you came across that sort of answered those questions or played a major role in you accepting Islam?
After I accepted Islam, there were a number of people.
So it's purely on your own accord. I'm just trying to sort of piece together. So you had these questions, you went to the masjid, or you spoke to people, certain Muslims, or how did that happen?
So coming to the deen was really a personal search. It was really, you know, after having so many problems in my life, and I think about it, it was not really major problems. It was just simply I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with things. I was pursuing a career in journalism, pursuing a career in presenting, and all of that didn't really make me very happy, not at all. And so I was looking for something that could guide me, to give me something of a direction in my life. And so, yeah, it was just that which made me sit down and think about it and look into things like, I remembered Malcolm X, and I looked at his life and looked at some of the things that was important to him. So that those things made me think again. But after Islam, there are a number of people I think were very, very important in terms of helping me. One of those was Khalil Siddiqui. Khalil Siddiqui was he's founded what was called the Muslim Parliament, which later became the Muslim Association of the UK, and he was very activist in doing things for Islam, doing things for the Muslims. And that was the first time I really felt, you know, I want to do something for the Muslims. I want to work on their behalf, etc. Later on, and we continue to do. My wife and I would do. We're doing things with charities. We do things that to try and do things to do good works, inshallah, for the Muslims. So, but that was the start of it. The consciousness that we needed to do something for, not just to sit there and not do anything. So yeah, that was the start of it. So second, if you like, and is an influence in my life was people, thinkers that were thinking about different ways of the deen. The name escapes me, but when I got to Sudan, those shuyukh were amazing people, and they were so full of knowledge, and those were real great guys. My sheikh was Sheikh Ahmed al-Faqih. I sat every day with my sheikh before he died. So these things are very, very important in my life, and I think they have guided me and given me the kind of character and the kind of person I am. Those kind of people, ones who weren't just there sitting on their hands and doing nothing. They were learning, and they were pushing and helping the ummah. I think that's so important. So these are the people who were my influences, if you like, in trying to do something for the community. And in my writings now, as a journalist, I always think about how that will impact, because especially as we're going through a difficulty in Sudan at the moment. My writings are always trying to make some clarity about what's going on and what could go on if things sorted themselves out.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you were there for so many years, 12 years, you said?
That's right. Yeah.
So that played a major role in your life, a major chapter in your life. How do you feel about the situation in Sudan at the moment?
It's a very difficult time for me to actually get through and try and comprehend what was going on. I really have to tell you that, the Sunnis people are the nicest people you could ever wish to meet. It was, it was so pleasing to be in Sudan over those years. But you don't recognize now what has happened with people killing each other, with people, fleeing from the situation there. And it's taken me a long time, to try and come to terms with that, and then start writing again, and start getting involved in helping people, because, like I said, I didn't recognize what was going on. I didn't know I didn't recognize the same people that I'd grown up for 12, 13, 14 years with. I just simply couldn't recognize these people. So it is very, very sad what's happened. And it's really, when you see the suffering that the people are going through. But they've always been out to du'as, and we always do as much as we can in terms of the financial side of things. Let's try and get to them someday.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel that sometimes there's certain parts of the Muslim world which are sort of overlooked or neglected, and Sudan is one of those places. You have Yemen. I mean, there's so many crises in the Muslim world. But you're right, not many people shed any light on the situation in Sudan.
Yeah, I mean, the situation which continues to be at the behest of other countries that are interfering into what's happening in Sudan. It's very difficult to know when they're going to pull out.
Okay, so your aspiration, if we could talk a bit about your aspirations for the future, are you planning to stay here in Turkey, planning to make hijrah possibly to another country? I know you were in Sudan for some years and now you're here in Turkey. Are you planning to settle here or move?
The plan is to stay here. I mean, it's a wonderful place. It's so much full of history, and like I said, I love hearing that azan. So yeah, I'm probably going to be here. But also, there's so many places I want to see, and so many places I want to get to in terms of trying to help. So we're making plan to go to Afghanistan quite soon. We're also trying to, get to Syria.
Okay, mashallah.
As well.
I know you've been a couple of times.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we want to do as much as we can for the people there. And so really to continue to meet the Muslims and do what I can, do what we can, that's really what the aim is.
Yeah. Okay, so last couple of questions before we wrap up. What would your advice be to those who are not yet Muslim, who are looking into Islam? What would you say to them?
I think in many ways it's a case of wanting to seek clarity. Are you cleared or you're confused about your life? If you're confused about your life, doesn't know what you're doing, you're making mistakes, you don't understand why you're making those mistakes. You're doing things that you really shouldn't be doing and you'd rather you didn't. The direction of your life, where it's going, is it wholesome, or is there things that you're doing that means that you're coming into disrepute with yourself and with others? This is the kind of thing that you need to ask those questions, and if you do, you'll find the answer every single time with knowledge and practice. That's Islam. You have knowledge of the truth of what is from the one who created you, and you have practice, actually putting it into practice every single day in the best way that possibly you can do.
I guess that sort of sums up your life in a sense, because it started with that quest for answers and knowledge, and then it took you on that journey of knowledge for X amount of years, and I guess that journey doesn't really finish.
It doesn't. The journey of knowledge doesn't really ever finish, and wanting to know, what is, what you're here for, how are you going to help people with that? That's got to be in the center of your heart. Got to be a center of what you want to do with your life. It's not just help yourself. Well, we're living in a society now where it's all about the self. It's all about me. These things are really not what was intended by the Maker, because you find far more fulfillment if you're working for others and you're doing for others. And it's when you're doing for others is you then can find some kind of strength in yourself, because you're actually doing the right thing, actually giving people less fortunate than yourself. So that's important. It's so important.
Beautiful advice. And we'll end the show there. Jazakallah khair for joining us. We really appreciate your time. And for our viewers, Jazakallah, thank you very much for joining us for this episode. If you are in Istanbul, if you're a new Muslim in Istanbul, or you're planning to visit Istanbul anytime soon, do get in touch with us. We'd love to have you on our show. And you never know, maybe we'll be sitting with you and discussing your journey to Islam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us guided on the straight path. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.